Yeah, I thought we were gonna position the camera and stuff, work on that. Like my screens, cameras move over.
It's not bad. I conditioned it in the beginning. This is a crap setup.
Make the right damn choice, take control today. With Boss by your side, we'll lead the way. Simplify your world on your data economy. Join the damn fam, it's time for autonomy.
Welcome to the first episode of the Damn Software Podcast, the podcast for digital asset management, where we talk about all things software, self-hosting, and autonomy, removing your as a service bill from your life. I'm the main host, Kevin Riordan. My co-host is Mike McGuire. We both work in networking, and we are both new into podcasting. So there's speed bumps here. There's going to be quite a few probably. Yeah, I work in
Not too good.
software. Go ahead, Mike.
The lighting's not too good.
Lighting's not too good.
Yours looks okay. Mine's. I look like I'm in the dark. It's
I'm
pretty
on
bright.
a MacBook camera, and don't know how good the microphone is yet, but we'll see how it goes. If nobody listens, then I won't upgrade the camera, and a penny saved. All right, so yep, I work in software. Been doing it for about 6 years after school, and been kind of a hobbyist home labber, and decided to build a business around it.
Yep, I work in primarily networking right now, but I've been working for about 37 years after school. So I've done a lot of different things, but last several years have been pretty focused on really networking, core networking.
Yeah, hoping that we can kind of we bring a very different set of skills and viewpoints here over different horizons. So it should be a pretty good mix between the history of tech and some of the newer stuff and a little context around it. So I enjoy talking to you, not on camera. So hopefully other people enjoy listening to it. All right, so this week, the first episode, we're just going to kind of talk a little bit about the business, a little bit about what this podcast is going to be, the influence of it, and where I hope it goes. So we're starting this podcast because we're both huge fans of self-hosted, and that podcast is ending, and I don't want it to end. So trying to fill some big shoes there. Hats off to those guys. You will be missed for sure, and yeah, we'll see how this goes. So similar to them, we are interested in Tailscale. We are an MSP of Tailscale, but unlike them, we are not sponsored. We have no sponsors at all. And if you can't tell by our recording studio, yeah, we're looking if anybody's interested. But this whole deployment of all the software and the digital asset management that we talk about on this show is all centered around mesh networking with WireGuard as Tailscale as the orchestrator, or Headscale. And hopefully in the future we have more entrance into the space and we can participate in what I believe to be part of a networking software revolution, and maybe kind of the pendulum swinging away from the cloud and those big tech folk. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. So that's basically that. I brief story into my history of Tailscale and usage. Just started off self-hosting stuff, opening ports up, not really knowing the risk that I was taking doing that. Eventually found my way over to WireGuard and was setting up phones manually, moving keys around, even a couple times, transcribing them from paper first, which was not a good strategy at all. And I can't believe I've done that. And then, discovered Tailscale and haven't looked back or really thought about networking and deployments and DevOps the same way since. What about you, Mike? What's
Yeah,
your story?
yeah, I wound up using, I was connecting two different homes together. Originally, I was looking at doing that with IPsec, Open Swan, things like that on the routers. That, it was just too much of a pain in the neck. I could do it, but it was just too much of a pain. So I wound up using WireGuard directly. Like you said, I don't ever remember writing keys on paper, but cut and pasting keys, got things to work, got the routing straightened out. And it worked and it was okay. But all it did was connect the two homes together. And then when we started looking at Tailscale and talking about it, I was like, oh, I can connect any number of phones I want to that same combined network. That's wow, that's really powerful. And just connecting the two sites together using Tailscale was so much easier than the work the config work that I had to do to get it working without it. That, was a no-brainer. So, we started falling in love with the Tailscale pretty much immediately. It's just ridiculously easy to use compared to anything else I've ever used in that kind of space of VPN and remote access and so on.
Yeah, totally. I mean, to call it a VPN is really to sell it short when you look at the way you can connect software, not even networks per se, but build networks out of software. It really is like SDN's true destination, kind of in my mind. But yeah, just a reminder, we are not sponsored by them. So even though this might sound like an ad, they are not yet paying us. Yeah. But another common thread other than that is the services that we were running in our homes before we tried connecting them. So you want to talk a little bit about what you were running, Mike?
Yeah, well, I was running Home Assistant for a while, and that drove a lot of the desire to link my two homes together because I didn't want to run two instances. It's just too many headaches and too much duplicated effort. So that bringing those two together made that much simpler, and leveraged what I had already done with Home Assistant. I think Home Assistant was really the main thing that I had started with on this journey, and then now I'm down the rabbit hole. It's hard to remember how you slipped in.
Yeah. So are you were running two instances and now you're down to one instance? Is that
No, I only ever ran one. I just wanted to figure out how to
okay?
use that one for two different locations.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I've been playing with Home Assistant for 5-ish years, roughly, maybe something like that. I don't know. And started off running HAOS on a laptop, and then the laptop was not good, so it was overheating, and the fan was dying, and I was waiting for it to explode. So eventually, I learned Docker and was like, okay, I'll use the Docker instance. So that's currently what I'm running. One of the first segments I want to talk about is a bit more about the Home Assistant stuff, and that's gonna play a piece into it. And then I ran the Tailscale sidecar. And since we're not yet sponsored, we can just talk about the problems, which MDNS does cause some hurdles, especially when using like HomeKit integrations. Did you have any of those types of problems connecting the two homes?
I don't have any HomeKit equipment, so I didn't notice any. I wasn't really relying on MDNS for anything, so I didn't hit any issues around that.
Okay. And for the uninitiated, MDNS is kind of like ARP, and for the also still uninitiated, it's a way that on layer 2 devices can share their IP address, or in MDNS it allows them to also share their domains on a layer 2 network, and Tailscale totally operates on the layer 3 network. So we have experienced some problems with that, but I think I'm going to make the move back to HAOS at this point, because after listening to the Home Assistant podcast where they interviewed, what was his name?
Paulus, I think it was.
Paulus, the creator of Home Assistant, they are going to be deprecating the Docker container and moving to HAOS. And I want the add-on store back. Even though we can network all the containers together with Tailscale, it's still nice sometimes to just push a button and have it running on the same host if you're not concerned about the resources.
Yeah, so I had started out with Docker as well, and about a month or maybe 2 months ago, I moved to the HAOS because one of the integrations I want to use is an add-on. It was very difficult to use add-ons with the Docker, and it turned out to be a fortunate thing, with the deprecation of the
Yep. It's actually a perfect segue. So one of those services that is an add-on that I tried running with Docker is Baby Buddy, because I'm going to be a new father. Looking forward to that in a month or so. And obviously, I have to track all of the metrics and make sure that it's all locally hosted. Don't know what I'm going to do with them all, but I know that I need them. So that's where I'm starting off. And I went on the journey of, okay, I got to spin up Baby Buddy. There's a Tailscale ready repo that we have on our Git repo, which will be linked down below, about easy deployment. If you have Tailscale, all you got to do is throw the key in. Going to be a common thread in this show about software we talk about and having it perfectly ready to integrate with Tailscale so that you can host that software anywhere. And I deployed the baby buddy Docker container with that, and it came up, but then I had to go and get a custom integration, and then I had to link it manually. And for whatever reason, the DNS did not work on the linking, which was a little strange. Also, the integration told me that the default port was 8,000, even though it's 3,000. So there was a couple little speed bumps there. And if you have HAOS, you can just go to the add-on store, click Baby Buddy, and it's running there locally. And that's the kind of software I don't really need to have fully portable. Like if that's tied to my Home Assistant instance and that goes down, whatever I was going to do with that data in Home Assistant isn't going to work anyway. So I don't really need it to be like, in some cluster or something.
So the Baby Buddy is an add-on in Home Assistant?
It's both, yeah. So it's also a standalone piece of software that you can use.
Right. That's what I
as
had
Docker. But I guess I think Frank also had packaged it up as an add-on.
Oh, okay. And you're going to use it as an add-on?
Well, I'm using it as a standalone right now, and I guess since I deployed it that way, I'm probably going to just keep doing it that way. But for ease of use, if I was going to tell somebody how to do this, I would not tell them to do what I did, basically. It is interesting, though. There's a little interesting networking piece there. Because HAOS, the way they deploy their containers and the communication happens, if you manually deploy the Docker container on an HAOS, it would not work. You have to add a custom environment variable about how it communicates. I didn't go far enough to know exactly what happens, but the Docker container itself is not just transportable between HAOS and an external system. There's a specific modification that was made to it to run on HAOS and make it a push button add-on. Yeah, so I went down that route and it's working now. And then I was like, okay, let me start down the automation path. So one of the things that we're both playing with now is NFC tags, and I have some basic automations. I have like a nighttime routine. You put your phone down, all the blinds close and all the lights go off and whatever else. But other than that, I haven't been using them too much. And so I wanted a way to be like, okay, diaper change, baby to bed, all that. So these are what the NFC tags look like. They're like a quarter shaped, thin little plastic disc. And in there is a little chip that gets juiced up from your phone, so there's no battery or anything. And they're a pretty cool little thing. It's like a QR code, except you can write data to it. So pretty cool. And so I needed there's in the Baby Buddy thing, there's some custom stuff people have built. You got to solder, it's a little involved to get buttons so you can easily do the data entry because it's a pain. So I thought, instead of buttons, let me do this. This will be easier. And I found a pretty cool model on, I think it was Thingiverse or Printables, where it's a dodecahedron. And the dodecahedron, I guess these are a very standardized format, but I just searched NFC and this came up, and they perfectly fit right inside the dodecahedron. So it's like a D&D dice, and you put each one of these little quarter size tags on each side, and that will allow me to tap the phone and be like, kid took a dump or something. So yeah, I thought this will be pretty good, but now I have to figure out how to drive the automations for everything I want. And there's like more parameters than I need, like the color or the consistency. And, I really want to focus on who changed the diaper, so I can just be like, no, look, I'm holding my own here. So yeah, with this, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 12 different actions I can drive, but there's a lot more that Baby Buddy supports. So they've kind of given me more than I need, and I have to figure out how to whittle it down. And I made a basic automation with my phone to just tap it to do diaper change. But I mean, maybe I'm missing something in the automation thing, but I want to be able to have one automation and drive it based off of which phone touches it. So if I have one tag for diaper change and my phone touches it, I want that data to go one place. And if her phone touches it, I want it to go to another place. But it looks like I need to have an automation. I mean, if you're going to just use the UI to configure them instead of the YAML configuration, then you need to kind of make an independent one for each thing. I'm trying not to end up with like, you know, hundreds of automations based on each parameter.
I think you could, I got to look at it, but I figured you could say if the phone is whoever and it's that particular tab, then do this. If it's this, if it's not that phone, if it's some other phone and this tag, do something else.
Yeah,
So,
so there is like that one split there. The automations do get long, but it's not as clear as, okay, like I've triggered this tag and then I have the phone as a parameter to the function that I have for the automation. It's very, if the tag scanned and it was this phone, then do this, and if it was this phone, then do this. And I want the this part to be one thing basically, and not have to create this expanding tree of if then else cases. I'd like to
oh
be
wait,
able to carry parameters down through the logic, you know?
did you look in the did you look in the log? Maybe it records which phone did this.
Yeah, I I really do need to dive a little bit deeper into it. It might be possible, but on my first little attempt there, it did not jump out at me. And this is with Home Assistant instance version 25.4.2.
Yeah, I've also started playing with the NFC tags, but I haven't looked at the log to see if the phone that recorded, or that scanned the NFC is recorded. But I would bet it's probably in a log,
Okay.
and
Yeah,
then it still may be a pain. I haven't done any automations triggered or using data out of the log, but should be able to get what you want, I think, from that.
oh, so you're saying drive an automation off the log message?
Well, I'm thinking more, you kind of want to, I mean, your initial thing was like, let's count who's doing more. All you really needed a count, so you could get the count separate from the automation,
It
like
is.
daily summary or something like
Yeah, I will say though the Baby Buddy integration, even though it's a custom integration, really impressive. Basically, every single part of the Baby Buddy API is created as a service in Home Assistant with all of the parameters there. So they did a really, really good job at giving you all of the functionality of Baby Buddy. And I think really that comes down to it just being an open source passion project, right? Like people step up when they want it and there's nobody charging for it. You can build it the way people want it, basically. Yeah, so it was pretty good. I did find some pretty other cool NFC projects that I definitely will want to do. So just go through the list pretty quick. I got like 6. First one was NFC for Wi-Fi. So you can create like a little Wi-Fi key, 3D print a key, or like a Wi-Fi logo. And people can just touch their phone on it and get paired with the Wi-Fi. So if people are like, what's the Wi-Fi? You're like, just put your phone here. Boom, they're on the Wi-Fi. That's pretty nice. You don't have to like scavenge your house for that post-it note. And you can actually keep a hard password, keeping your network secure too. So it kind of is like a YubiKey for Wi-Fi access. It's pretty nice. Another one I saw was dog tags. So instead of having to chip your dog, you can just put one on the dog tag and write all your information, your contact information to it, and say like "scan me" on it, in case your dog gets lost, which I thought was interesting.
I hope that market is not too big because I don't want a contract on my life because you just took away a huge revenue stream from some company.
What, chipping dogs? Yeah, we're probably chipped already, and they're like, all right, pull the plug. They're on to us. Yeah, one that I've talked to you about offline that I played around with but haven't really implemented is like appliance tracking, warranty tracking, putting it on kind of the higher budget items in your life that you want to be warranted and not lose it. Scan the document, get it on your network attached storage, and then write a link to it and stick that to your device. So if you ever need the warranty, you can pull it out real quick. You don't want your heat going down or your something critical to your life and then having to spend a bunch of time trying to get that going again. Let's see. Off that, I was like working on my bike over the weekend, changing the oil, and there's a bunch of stuff you got to do every year. Check the chain, this, that, different service intervals. And I was like, oh, I could just put a tag on every page in my service manual. And when I complete the task, just tap my phone and I'll know that, oh, this has been serviced. And I have a couple older bikes that I don't ride very often that I don't know when I service them at this point. So it would be nice to know that information. I also have chickens, and this one's pretty straightforward. Just tag them like you would the dogs. And the last couple here was I used to have a business card with a QR code on it, and you would scan it and take you to a landing page of all the socials, the website. It would contain your VCF, your contact card file. It was nice. You could give somebody all of your information and not have this super crowded business card. I was like, oh, maybe you could do the same thing with NFC tags, but there's still like a cultural problem there. Like you're gonna get people are like, what do you mean scan this? So I don't think you would get a lot of business handing out cards like that. Yeah. And one of the one I really liked was this person who had a NFC record collection. So they had a massive collection of records, and they had all the media local that they had recorded somehow. So you could take a record and you could walk up to the record player and you could just put the whole record with the cover down on the spot, and it would play the record over the house. Which I was like, because it's nice to enjoy the record and the art and the collecting piece. So I thought that was a pretty cool collection. I mean, we all have probably lots of DVDs and VHSs that I don't know. You don't want to throw them out. I mean, I've digitized a lot of my media, but it's still nice to look at stuff sometimes.
Yeah, have something to touch and hold. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. And then I'm trying to plan ahead for the kid getting older. It's like already thinking ahead, like, could I gamify the NFCs in some way? Hide them or tie them to chores or a reward metric and make it like a fun puzzle, a point-based system or something. By the time my kid's old enough for that, he'll probably be running around with like VR goggles every day or something. I don't know. Yeah. What have you been working on any Home Assistant stuff recently, or what are you playing with these days, Mike?
Yeah, I'll throw this out. This is a somewhat humorous story. So we were talking offline about, trying to find some local people maybe who were using Home Assistant, just, get some feedback, possibly have them on the podcast as a guest. So I thought, oh, we'll use the in-town mom's Facebook page. My wife's got a, Facebook page. I don't have Facebook, but she could post on there. So that went up on Thursday, and that got no response at all. No direct messages, no comments, no nothing. But this weekend, we got an in-person response to it. I won't even give you a guess as to like the context of what the comment was, because you'll never guess. So they saw the post, and they saw Home Assistant in front of. So this is my son-in-law's parents who are over for Mother's Day, and they said in front of my in-laws, my wife's parents, how your dad's getting pretty bad. You guys need a home health aide. And it was like, no, home assistant, not home health.
What was the message that you posted? Do you know? Was it like we're
Yeah, I mean, I gave the message. It was like, hey, if anybody out there is using a Home Assistant and would like to, discuss their experience, please, DM me. So it was pretty short, pretty simple, right? But that was, my son-in-law's parents' takeaway was like, we need somebody to help, like with health, as a health aide, right? And now my mother-in-law, right, is like, what, you guys are looking for a health aide? No. This is all completely wrong.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I'm in hindsight, I guess maybe a little more context is needed for the moms of the town Facebook page.
Yeah. Yeah. The only other feedback my wife got from another friend of hers is like they were a Google Home, so they use Google Home for
Okay.
everything.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking to do some market research and see what people's SaaS spend has been. I've been asking around in person a little more and more, and yeah, it depends on the type of person, but like even if you're like tech adjacent, those people seem to have a lot more proclivity for trying different services and maybe not canceling them all the time. So yeah, I mean, the standard response is, I pay for Google, backup, Google Drive, iCloud. I did get one person who said, yeah, iCloud was a huge pain and I hated waiting for it to load and everything was slow. So I just upgraded my phone to a terabyte and now it's way better. And I don't use the iCloud. And I was like, it is probably better, but what if you lose your phone?
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, I just won't. And I was like, okay, all right.
That reminds me of a story of at a Rutgers football game. A friend dropped the phone into the porta john.
Oh yeah.
Her husband dove and got it back.
Oh my God.
Believe it or not, the phone worked.
Wow. I hope that was at the end of the game and they did not go sit down with a blue arm in the bleachers.
Yeah, it was. It was late. Well, end of the game is not a good time for the
That's
porta
true.
john.
I guess it depends how you look at it.
It wasn't blue, his arm.
Oh man. Phones are getting pretty expensive now, so if it was a brand new phone, maybe.
Well, really, word of caution is basically even if you have a terabyte of storage and you think you're not going to lose your phone, things could happen. Like it falls out of your pocket, and the truck rolls over it, or what. Uh, you want to generally have a backup of most things.
Yeah. And now with Tailscale and all of this software and every software gets better every day and the cost of hard drives falls every day and the price of the cloud seems to go up every day. You can have kind of all of it, right? You can have the backup, you can buy the cheaper phone or you can buy the bigger phone if you need to hike around all those photos every day and you don't have to suffer in the porta john or with the cloud bill. You can have both.
Yeah, there's a lot of options now. There's a lot of stuff we're going to go through that really wasn't possible. What, maybe even just 2 or 3 years ago at the most.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty exciting feeling when you run a piece of software on a laptop and in like a dev environment, not even like going to deploy it, and then you can just send somebody a link and they can access your temporarily, developed partial instance, and then you push another button and you can put it on the internet if you want. You bring your laptop somewhere else, open it up, and it's still on the internet. It's Docker claimed to be portable, but they assumed that your network would be configured everywhere you went. And now that's actually true now with the addition of Tailscale. So it is pretty fun, pretty fun. I think my next mission, which the can has been kicked for a while now, is to move off of Synology Photos over to Image to do that. You're fully there now?
All I have now is image. I'm hitting the one, I don't know if you want to talk about the block, not so much a blocker because I'm there and that's where everything is, but um, there is one thing that I think is pretty big hurdle for almost everybody moving over, unless it's a single individual, which is that if so there's metadata around your photos, right? Like things like people's names that match into their faces. And then there's a ton of other metadata. And the way Image currently deals with that data is that it's on a per user basis. So the user owns all their photos. They could share their photos, but they can't share the metadata. So if my wife and I both upload two photos, I have maybe two faces, she has two faces, but we can't search on each other's faces. And that is kind of a big hurdle that I think Image is really wrestling with. I'm in a couple of different discussion groups on there, and I would say I see a message every other day from people saying, yeah, we need to do this, and there's got to be a way to figure this out. So hopefully that'll be overcome pretty soon. Right now, the way to get around that is that we're just using a single user, so all the photos look like they came from one admin user.
Yeah. And I guess for like a husband wife situation, that's not really too much of a sacrifice. You probably operate like that in most of your accounts, right? Your Netflix. I mean, maybe you have different users or whatever, but for the most part, I don't think that's that big of a hurdle. So I guess that means you have her and you are both automatically backing the phones up.
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
they both auto backup. I think we have it on all the time, not just, when we're on the land. I mean, it doesn't seem to be impacting the battery in a huge way or anything like that.
Nice. And so is it just the two of you on the instance, or have you hooked up anybody else in your tailnet?
Right now it's just two of us. Other people have access to the tailnet for other like video sharing, but that video service sharing. But yeah, right now for image, it's just the two of us.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just want to share your own paid video service with yourself, like if you're traveling and you just want to access the stuff you're paying for and they're, putting up those roadblocks.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's a definitely a handy feature, especially if you're a like college kid and you're still on the mom's plan. It's a good tool.
Yep.
What about you? Do you have another self-hosted service you're targeting, or are you still trying to deal with all the stuff you're running at this point?
Well, yeah. So I'm gonna take a dive down a really dangerous path of free IPA and either Athelia or Authentic to get this whole back end of like owning my own ID as much as possible. And then that right away brings up passkey, and I gotta figure that out because I haven't even read anything about passkey yet. I'm figuring that's gonna fit into the picture as well.
Yeah, I'm fully going to be a long-term. I've already decided I'm going to be a holdout on passkeys for a long time. Uh, I'm down with the authentic Authelia SSO, internal SSO to all the services. One user base for if they support it, awesome. Um, the passkeys thing, I don't like. I feel like there's real problems actually with the security. I mean, I've already heard some stories. I think you had told me one offline about accidentally logging into something that you didn't think you were logging into with what you were logging into because it's so
Yeah,
seamless.
so that wasn't I don't that really didn't have anything to do with passkeys. Right now I use KeyPass XC for as my password manager. And I went into Proton Mail and it brought up, the KeyPass XC brought up the password, username, password, locked me in. And I thought I was going into my damn consulting uh, or digital asset management email account. And instead, I was in my Gmail. I could, after looking at the emails for a little while, I'm like, wait a minute, this is my Gmail under a completely different name than I was expecting. How did this happen? And I'm thinking, this Proton somehow was able to, like, I don't know, clone my Gmail.
Yeah,
I looked up the history of that, the credentials that were used, and I had created them in October last year, completely forgotten I had done it. I guess Proton lets you put the Proton Mail as like a front end GUI to the Gmail backend. And that's what I was looking at. But I got really worried that somehow my email was hacked or like it's not secure enough that Proton was able to just do this. I had done it. I just didn't even remember doing it.
yeah. Even though that story doesn't exactly correlate to this, it does feel like though with Google's new ID system that they're building with the fingerprinting, that's now kind of not even really opt out, and with all this AI tooling that they're these aggregators are going to aggregate, right? That's what they do. So when things work nice, it's nice, but sometimes it's that eerie feeling of like, why did I just see that ad for something I just said 2 seconds ago? It's like, why is this data already here? How did this get here?
If that happened once every year, maybe just statistically that could happen. But when that happens 3 times a day, that's
Yeah.
statistics on
You
random.
start looking behind you like, what's going on? Who's over my shoulder? Um, yeah, but at the same time, it is nice when things work seamlessly. So I mean, it does. We are kind of complaining out of both sides of our mouths, like, hey, if it's too much friction, this sucks, and if it all just aggregated on its own, that's not good either. I think really is what the defining line is. Do you know what's happening? If you don't know what's happening, it's uncomfortable.
Yes, yeah. So I think what you're getting at, the cinder block through the picture window here is one of the really important or significant drivers of like, well, why would I want to go through all the trouble of hosting my own whatever? Is that you then become the owner of that and no one else, you know, has access to it. You are not the product, and you get an incredible amount of autonomy from doing that.
Yeah, I mean, if you vertically integrate your software, I mean, other than the benefits of having that data lake to run AI across and all the forward-looking stuff, vertically integrating means you're saving money and you own that process. So if you're a business, that really is going to make a difference in your bottom line, especially when you look at, downturns or, misses in revenue. That's really going to matter. Or if you're a startup and you need that runway to actually achieve revenue, it's gonna really make the difference. I think, there's talk of, with AI, who's gonna build the first one person $1 billion company. Uh, I'm gonna go ahead and wager that whoever does that is probably going to own their tech stack and not outsource every part of it. So yeah, I think we're in the beginning of the wave, and I'm excited to help people get there and build this new internet that Avery, the CEO of Tailscale, talks about. I think we're both pretty sold on that mission. So I think that's that's the taste for the podcast. What we're going to talk about. Home Assistant will probably come up a good bit. A bunch of other software. We'll probably experiment with some different segments, maybe some guests, maybe kind of venture out. I got some people who run 3D printing businesses and talk about their tech stack, or maybe some small businesses, and we'll try and get a view of the landscape and show people what are the low hanging fruit to migrate away from on your SaaS spend, and where the value is, and go from there. I'd also like to maybe talk about a little bit of news, if we can, about some maybe changes in the software projects that we use, if they're the open source, community is changing the way they operate, if it's turning into, going from private to public, or if they're going from for profit to not, whatever the changes are. Just keep a pulse on those projects and how they're evolving, and maybe some other tech news and some smart home stuff. The one interesting news thing I have that I found, I don't know too much about it, so I might be a little over my skis here, but I found out that in Europe, for power, there is a standard that they have that we do not have here in the US. It's created by EcoFlow, and I've seen their batteries at like Costco and stuff. They sell them here in the US. But what they have there in Europe is you can just hang a solar panel out and then connect it into your wall outlet. And it'll just add voltage to your wall outlet, reducing your bill. So it'll put, if you run 120 volts, you plug it in, it puts out 120 volts, and it's not going to run your whole house, but it'll help just take that edge off your bill a little bit. And they apparently it's pretty big in Europe and picking up steam, and people can hang like a solar panel off their balcony and plug it in. And it's interesting too for Europe because they have a variable billing, so they pay really high rates during the day versus at night, and the sun shines during the day, so you can take off that most expensive edge just a little bit. And so apparently this has been approved in Utah. So Utah is the first state to have either that standard or an equivalent standard. I'm not too firm on all of the details, but it's a pretty exciting start. I would love to live in a world where we have plug and play power gen. I live on like a farm environment, so I have some buildings that or places I might want power that aren't, wouldn't be easy to run a line. Having a plug and play system where I don't necessarily, or standard, where I don't necessarily need to, go get a bunch of car batteries or lithium batteries and blow my head off. And I also don't need to buy into some proprietary, expensive, bespoke solution that I can't go shop competitive parts for. It would be really, really nice. I mean, in the US right now, if you want solar, you have to get an electrician. It has to be tied in at the meter between the panel. Like, a lot of work needs to be done to get that. And to just reduce that barrier to entry and make it an open standard that you can build on, I think would really allow some cool stuff to be built.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think I saw a video about this within the last 6 months in Europe. It was a European solution. Yeah, and people were literally unfolding like, 4 or 6 panels on their, they're an apartment on their balcony. Yeah, and yeah, plugging it in.
Yeah. Do you have solar? Or have you thought about getting solar here?
I I think about it all the time, but I really like trees, and I don't want to cut my trees down.
Mm. Yeah.
Eh, You know, it's easy to look at it and say, yeah, it's not going to work if you don't cut the trees down. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I would. I'm blessed enough to have the space. I would probably do a ground mount installation. I've thought, yeah, again, just like you, it's always on my mind. My electric bill is ridiculously high. I pay like anywhere between around 400, $500 a month. That was like last month. So in the summer it picks up a little bit because I run oil heat in the winter. Yeah, in the summer it's it's even higher. And we're facing a 20% increase in New Jersey in about a couple weeks. So it's going to be even higher. And so, that's definitely pushing me more to look at it based on my geography and the setup. I'd probably try and do something called a PPA, a power purchase agreement with my neighbor or something to build a bigger installation and hook up a couple houses. And that way it's easier to get um, the loans to build it. Otherwise, you kind of have to go through another thing, and then you don't even own it and all that. But the one thing that really gets under my skin is here in New Jersey, you're not allowed to produce 100% of your electricity with solar. There's a cap. It's either 95 or 98%. I was at a buddy's house. He had solar ground mount installation. It was a rectangle. It was missing one panel. I'm like, what happened to the panel that would complete the rectangle? And he was like, oh, we're not allowed to produce that much energy. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe with the SRECs they didn't want, which is the solar energy credit, but I'm not sure. We'll see. If the bill keeps going higher, I will find out though. That could be a whole episode at some point in the future. So, what else you eyeing up these days, Mike? I know you got something else going on.
Yeah, so I'm looking at moving from having pets at home to herding. And so the concept there is instead of having these one or two machines that run everything and if they break, you run out and buy a new power supply or troubleshoot it and get it back up right away. What I want to have is a bunch of very low cost machines, be able to move things around. I'm probably going to have to learn how to use Kubernetes really well in doing that. But the idea is that I'm going to have a herd. And so if one of these, low cost machines dies, you just, either hopefully automatically, but if not manually, move whatever was on it to one of the remaining members of the herd. And it's kind of amazing, at least for now, with current pricing, just how many small boxes you could buy for the cost of maybe three-quarters of a decent sized server. And so I've already got 5 or 6 of these small mini PCs, and I'm going to be, putting them together. I'm going to try and make them all look identical, other than, like host name and IP address. And then going to see how many different things I can get running on them, hopefully easily. And we'll be sharing that.
Awesome, awesome. I am excited for you to do the suffering before I do, so I can do less of it. Because I definitely also want to go that way. I want to delete all Windows machines from my house. Blue Iris security system is one of the top two holdouts. The other one is probably gaming. But if I do gaming, at least I can power that machine down or maybe run it in a VM or something. Because that 3090, which I'm running the Blue Iris AI system on that and not doing anything with it. So I'm just throwing energy into a closet for no reason, and just I probably should turn that off. Yeah, that's cool. So what's your total core count on the herd? Do you have any idea on if it was one machine, what would
Uh,
it be?
well, each of these is a 4-core, 4-thread machine. So I got 6 altogether. So that'd be 24 core, 24 thread, right? And I'm kind of use the analogy of restaurants and banking. Give me the restaurant industry. I really like that because you pretty much can't destroy the restaurant industry. You can't. You can try and stamp it out in one spot and it'll pop back in a different form someplace else. Banks, you got banks that are too big to fail. The big banks fails, banking's done. So this is kind of the same philosophy, only with compute, in your home. And like I said, I picked up most of these were less than $150 each.
Yeah,
So, 6 of them, whatever that works out to, $900. For $900, it's really hard to build a server with, 8 cores or 12 cores. and I've got 24.
Yeah.
In terms of RAM, these all have either 16 or 12 gig of RAM, so I'm not touching that kind of RAM in a server. 6 by 12. It's not happening at $900.
No, yeah, that's pretty incredible. And then what's your storage situation? Are you hooking drives up to these and you're gonna have replicated drives, or are you gonna put that somewhere else?
Yeah, so I still have large servers that are my network attached storage, and I run, homegrown ZFS with Sanoid and Syncoid to do snapshotting and, remote backup of the snapshots. So that's, like a homegrown solution instead of, say, a Synology or an Unraid or, a product like that. I kind of like being able to touch all the pieces and I have the control of what's going on. And I also want to know that's also been a learning experience, right? I want to know how ZFS works. I want to be able to set it up. I want to be able to talk intelligently if there's a discussion about ZSF, and I have some idea what other people are talking about. Maybe have an opinion on what works and what's best, and so on.
Yeah, I feel a shortcoming there for sure. I have not played with ZFS, and I try and hang into the conversation, but I'm not always there. And in the self-hosted pod, they had done an episode about Bcache that was piquing my interest a little bit, but not enough to jump off the Synology train yet. I'm happy to play with the different software and containers, but I like that the state is backed up. I do have a couple Mac Minis, Mac machines that I run some services on, and then I just time machine them over to the Synology. So they're not really running off of like a network shared. So yeah, I mean, I want to see what type of performance I can get with the network share, but if I have the storage on the machine, I know it's going to get really good performance. And if these machines are pretty reliable and I can just time machine it to the Synology, I'm pretty happy with that solution right now. I don't really have to sacrifice much and have all of this network traffic. Not that I'm like competing for network space in my own house, but yeah. Um, so yeah, that's the I want to do the herd thing, but for now I might herd some containers, but not like you have more of like an ant farm. Everybody's working together. I just have like sheep lost in a field. Nobody's no, they're not all working together. Good. Yeah. So that'll be fun. I think we're going to keep that thread going throughout this podcast and keep track of the herd and see how the process goes. Tailscale, fundamental in the herd, I assume.
Yeah, well, so we have this, we have a split on that, right? You like to put Tailscale everywhere. I like to put Tailscale where I know I need it. So one of the things I do is I use my internet access routers as subnet routers for the tailnet. And so everything on my LANs then become part of my Tailscale network tailnet automatically. And so I don't necessarily need clients everywhere. Now, there's going to be a bunch of things that I'm going to start doing where using Tailscale's DNS and host name or even service naming architecture is going to make things a lot easier. So I may start to move more toward your philosophy, but we'll see what happens. I kind of
Yeah.
like, I also, that I'm a free user of Tailscale right now, so I don't want to break over any limits. And when you unleash I'm going to put either a sidecar or directly attach services to the tailnet. You can get into some pretty big numbers pretty fast.
Yeah, in true damn fashion, I am self-hosting Headscale to run my tailnet, and the tailnet that drives this podcast and the business and the repo that will be linked below and the website and all that. So therefore I have no limits. It's not like it's all upside though. Headscale being open source lags behind Tailscale. So there's some things that you either have to don't exist or you have to work a lot harder to achieve, like TLS, SSL certs. You're definitely not just going to push a button and get these things on the internet. You got to run your own reverse proxy. That breaks some of the portability of, hey, I have this service on my laptop. It's always on the internet at this address, right? You're going to have to move some of that networking with you, as mentioned before, if you're going to be running Headscale, which I think I don't really think there's any way around that entirely. I mean, maybe they could add some reverse proxy and stuff in head scale, and so your head scale could be portable with that. But yeah. So that's what I'm running. For those of you who want to try Baby Buddy or some of the services in the repo, all of the services in the repo are set up for Tailscale. That means you get your Tailscale key and the directions explain how to do it. If you're going to be deploying this stuff with Headscale, you might have to make a couple tweaks to some of the files, and they're not all when they're listed as certified in the search index. That means that I've tested them with Tailscale. That does not mean that they have been tested with Headscale. Sometimes DNS stuff like that will break stuff. So just a word of caution to those who want to try it. Hopefully every episode we have a new piece of software to review, and even more importantly, hopefully we find real value in them and continue to use them, or maybe find value for businesses or individuals who use them, and not just kind of talk about software, but software that actually has real value in our lives or the lives of other people. Yeah. So the Mac Mini runs, like I said, the Mac Mini runs the site and everything. It's a really great experience with Tailscale, being able to just hop in. I don't even SSH to it, because I can just grab the screen and be on it in one click. So it's actually almost easier. If I want a terminal, it's almost easier to just take over the machine and have access to the terminal that I already had up, which is kind of weird because Windows was never really that good at RDP, and it always was kind of clunky. But I gotta say, the Apple screen share, pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. Are you going to be running full headless on all of these herd members? Or
They'll all be full headless. No plans to put a GUI in. Yeah, I mean, can't think of any reason why I put a GUI on them. So it'll all be command line.
Okay. And then, so what's Free IPA's role in the herd here? How does that work?
Wow. So what's nice about Free IPA is that if I create a user, admin user, give it certain pseudo capabilities, every member of the herd is then a client on that free IPA server. It's very easy to set up like role-based access control that says, yeah, admin has, pseudo with whatever set up on all those hosts. So you set that up in one place and it's true everywhere. It's just a much easier way of doing the, let's say, the POSIX side of authentication and authorization. So
Yeah.
it makes it easier for that. And then once if you're doing that anyway, and you're looking at, let's say an authentic, to have all your users for applications like an image or a baby buddy or home assistant, right? Then it makes sense. Well, geez, I want to tie those together because I don't want to have two different, sources of truth for who my users are. So that's where I'm tying those two together. And that actually kind of brings us a little bit into the analysis paralysis, right? So one of the things I think we want to do with the podcast is figure out ways to get people going quickly on things that have a big payout. So some of the stuff we're talking about with free IPA and Athelia or Authentic, those are kind of like long-term, deliver long-term value. That's not stuff you want to play with like right out of the box. If you're just getting started, a home assistant, an image, a baby buddy, those would be much better choices to turn something up, put two users in, and you're like, wow, I can do all this. It's all mine. Nobody else knows nobody else sees this information. It's private. That helps would help give somebody new to it, a sense of what the value is.
Yeah. I mean, just from like cursory looking, because I have not yet implemented like an internal SSO to all the services. I don't have that many users for like the family stuff and the media and all that. So it hasn't really been that hard. But I think setting up SSO internal is, it's easier. It's not really a problem. You don't really have to worry about the security. If you're going to create a public facing instance though, and really connect it to like other systems, yeah, I think there's a big hurdle there. But I do envision a kind of rapid deployed business where you get the core fundamentals, right? Maybe it's head scale, maybe it's SSO, maybe it's a password manager, and a basic website, something that just covers your core basics, and then you can kind of go from there. The password one with Vault Warden seems seems like pretty Showtime ready. I mean, I'm not ready to give it that stamp of, use this for your enterprise. But when you look at like 1Password and all those other services, they're not really doing anything too crazy. And having that data local really makes a kind of a difference in security. So there's upsides to having that privately in your tailnet and manage. Those places are honeypots of a target.
Yeah, I moved my wife to Vault Warden, using the Bitwarden client, and because she's using a text file, and we got to fix that.
We probably should take that out of the podcast.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, I have her moved over to that already. So, that's another one. I forgot I was even running that,
Yeah.
running Vault Warden.
Well, I think that's the real test of, a damn good piece of software is when you forget you're running it and you're using it.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate level of success.
Oh, another one we use commonly, a little tiny piece of news is we both run Tesla Mate because we have Teslas.
Oh yeah.
Really great at consuming and then providing access to your data. Again, of course, Tesla has all that data too, but in real time, you can request it, whereas you can't go back. You can ask them, but they won't give you the data. But if you record it as you go along, you have it. But my point was Tesla Mate is now updated to 2.0, but don't run out and upgrade if you're using it because you need to upgrade the database separately first. Make sure you do that. And there's a range of I forget what the range of versions is. I'm pretty sure it's Postgres that you can use, but you've got to get to a newer version, I think, than you probably have, even if you had the latest one, the prior Tesla Mate release. So
Yeah, I'm trying to see what version I'm running right now. I do see on the site it says update to 2.0. Any exciting features in there that make you want to go through it or?
there's nothing to make me do it quickly. It's on my long list of things to do, but yeah, there was nothing like earth shattering. They've done an incredible job of improving the dashboards. I mean, I thought the dashboards blew me away from day one when I looked at it. It's almost 5 years ago now. To now, I mean, those dashboards are just incredible. I mean, it's a true testament to the power that Grafana brings to any graphical situation, I think.
Yeah, Grafana really is impressive when executed well. I think my favorite graph is the speed histogram. Like, I think that's my favorite one, where it shows you like a bar chart histogram of your total speed for a specific drive. I like to.
I'm not sure I ever looked at that one.
I'll throw one up here in the podcast. I can share. Let's test out this. Let's flex our podcasting muscles here. Zoom in. There we go.
Oh yeah.
It just shows how fast you're going. Not that useful.
We're in New Jersey on a
Oh
Friday.
no.
Are you driving 90 miles?
Hold on. We got a problem. Yeah. So a little technical difficulties there with Riverside FM. Great piece of software. First technical difficulty. What were we talking about? Oh, Tesla Mate. So yeah, I like the speed histogram. I think it's pretty valuable of a piece of software. Is all the data actionable? Not necessarily all the time. Don't drive a ton of automations off of it, but it's fun to look at. And I think like if I was buying a car or selling a car, I think it would make a real big impact. It's like when you buy a gas car and they have an entire, notebook of every piece of service that's been done to the car. It's just nice to know how it was taken care of. So I think there's real value in that piece of software.
Yeah, having the charging history, I think at resale and a private sale is enormous because, you could say, look, I literally went below 20%, 12 times or whatever it is. You're not going to find any other car where you're going to know that. Tesla knows that they're not going to tell you. Um,
Yeah.
and if people were going under 20 all the time, the battery's not going to have as much life. That's just that's the physics,
Yep.
chemistry.
Yeah.
The other thing that I like, what was the other thing? The resale. I did drive some automations off Tesla. My wife works in healthcare, and so she starts at either 6:30 a.m., 7 a.m., or 8 a.m. And she used to work. It could be any day of the week. And so the Tesla assumes you're working Monday to Friday and going to work the same time every day. So the scheduler in there did nothing with that. And so what I was able to do is read her. She uses when to work at her employer, and so that's in her personal calendar. So I had her home assistant read her personal calendar. It would know every day what time she was starting, and it would warm the car up, at the right time. So this way we weren't doing it real early. There's no reason to start warming the car up at 6 if you're going in at 8, right? So that
Yeah.
that was actually a really high utility kind of automation. And let me tell you, you get used to having a nice warm car to get into when you're going to work, because when that didn't work, I was notified. I mean,
I mean, it really is happy, happy wife, happy life. The automations that the wife loves do feel the most satisfying, even more than the ones I like. You're like, wow, I really did it. I achieved this unreachable bar of I made my wife enjoy an automation.
uh,
Yeah. And when they go offline, you go, shit, he's really mad. I gotta go fix this right now.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, you got the down detector is like
The
really.
down detect, yeah. I mean, that's all they need. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that automation also drove the car precondition, climate control for coming home as well. So that means when the sun was sitting out baking in the sun, you get in, oh, nice cool car, you're not burning your legs
Yeah.
on the seat.
Yeah. I mean, with a baby too, that will be very nice.
Yeah.
You don't want to agitate. An agitated wife is one thing, but then you get the baby and then the wife, then that's not good. So yeah, very cool. The Tesla Mate, I mean, for the low charging, the overcharging, the excess supercharging, I think it's really valuable. I imagine there's not many people out there doing this, but yeah, I think hopefully we can turn some of those numbers. That one is not currently on our damn repo because there is kind of a port conflict with their Grafana dashboard and the other dashboard. The other dashboard I find no utility from whatsoever. Do you find any utility in that like landing page that links
I use
to?
that I use that instead of the Tesla app to like see where the cars are or see like is somebody in
Oh,
there
really?
going. Yeah. And that map updates in real time.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe I haven't really tried to use it that much. Yeah. So to really get that one as a push button deployment for our audience, I guess we need an affectionate name for you guys, but yeah, it's not ready yet.
Yeah, we should
I,
figure
I
we'll work on that. We'll
Yeah,
figure
we'll
that.
work on that. We'll get a one. At the meantime, I can put one up and just put in a caution that says, "Hey, like you're gonna have to hit a different port for this service," or maybe deploy them as two separate services and then network them together with the magic of Tailscale.
Hey, one other perspective on Tesla Mate 2. I'm glad this came up. Is that you could actually pay monthly for a service like Tesla Fi to get roughly the same thing. I don't think you get nearly as much, or as good dashboards as Tesla Mate has, but you can lay out money monthly to get that service. And so that's kind of like on the commercial side of things for us. That's another place where, hey, there's another monthly bill we want you to never have to pay again.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna make a lot of friends in the tech industry by undermining every single SaaS product, but I am looking forward to
Let's see
doing
what
it.
happens.
I am looking forward to doing it. It'd be interesting to see what your bill would be. As somebody who said you've had 5 years running Tesla Mate, which I didn't even know it went back that far. What your total savings are versus running the paid software as a service. Maybe we should start a tracker of each service we use and what it replaced and what we're saving a month and
Yeah,
what we're getting for free that everybody else seems to be paying for no reason.
yeah. With a 5 year span, we'll be a little. I guess we gotta like put a little bit of a star on it, right? I'll bet Tesla Fi is more now than it was then.
Yeah, let's just put the big number up. Big numbers are fun. Yeah, little asterisks, but yeah, I think we should do that. And I'm really interested to see what type of numbers we can reach for our clients and who will be willing to share that in terms of real cloud hosting bills get crazy. I mean, we recently saw a stat offline of somebody who bought a $2,500 little micro PC, 128 gig of RAM, and something comparable on the cloud is looking at, you know, thousands, 5,000, 7,000 a month. That's just insane. I mean, you buy a hard drive, you can buy, you know, for when you buy just like an S3 bucket, and you're paying for hard drives, you know, 1.5 times a month for what you're using. You know, I this isn't sustainable, and despite the fact that, you know, Google and all the big people just posted big numbers on their cloud growth, I think we are reaching the top of this arc, and it's got to come back the other way, because it's just getting crazy out there.
Yeah, the numbers are just unrealistic. That example you brought up for, you know, for the cost of say 3 months, you could probably put equivalent compute and storage in every one of your family's homes, you know, and just ask them to, you know, pay for the power for it and have equivalent or better redundancy than what you're actually going to experience with a cloud provider. So
Yeah, not to
that's
mention your privacy is not being
a
sold off
small
for.
fraction of the cost.
Yeah, totally, totally. I mean, in these companies, you know, it's not nothing's free, right? You are the product, and that's how they've built these gigantic empires of value, is off that data. And we want to bring that data back to you so you can have that value, and whether you choose to monetize that value or just exist with it and use it for your own purposes. Yeah. So this has been the first episode of the Damn Pod, the Damn Software Pod, and we're looking forward to doing more of these. We hope you found this interested. I don't have all of the stuff set up yet for you to post, comment, tell me why, what you want to see, how you would change the podcast, if we're keeping up with the shoes of self-hosted and Alex and team over there from Jupiter Broadcasting, and or not. Again, they will be missed. And yeah, we're excited to see where this goes, and excited to connect different pieces of software and democratize all that power. So looking forward to it.
Definitely looking forward to it.
All right, Mike.
All right. Have a good night.